Alright, bro. This is our final mission. The world depends on us. We have to stop the monster from destroying everything we know. The people we love, the world. If the world ends, it's on you. And it's on me too.
Got it, bro. The world will see another day, even if it means it'll be our last.
That's right. Let's do this! Okay, you ready? Deploy your parachute in T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2...
Hello YouTube and welcome back to The Theory Crafters, a show that totally doesn't leave any open ends. In the last video, we explored the sweetest cave in the mod, being the Candy Cavity. This video, however, will be quite a bit different. Why is that? Well, there are a number of loose ends we want to close up before we move on to our next mod, which will be revealed at the end of the video. So, what loose ends are we talking about here? Well, at the end of the last video, we mentioned the story of Tremorzilla. This will of course be covered in this video, but we will answer two other questions. The first question is about how the cave tablet of the Forlorn Hollows was made and where it is found and why. And the second question will be about who wrote the cave compendium. Before we begin, I would like to thank you all for the support on this series. In less than 3 months, we have amassed over 1,000 subscribers and over 45,000 views across all of our videos. If you would like to see more of our content, then consider subscribing, and if you'd like to support the channel further, you can become a channel member. Without further ado, let's dive in. One of the big questions we missed in our Forlorn Hollows video is how exactly the cave tablets for the Forlorn Hollows came from. In the game, there are two places to find each cave tablet. The most common method to find any and all cave tablets are through loot found in the underground cabin structures, which we will dive into greater depth later in this video. The second, more uncommon way to find cave tablets is different for each tablet. For example, the magnetic cave tablets are found in Piglin bastions for their admiring of metallic materials, being gold and iron. Primordial cave tablets are found through the archaeology system of Minecraft. Toxic cave tablets are found in jungle temples for the heavy emphasis on green. Abyssal chasm tablets are found in underwater ruins as well as buried treasure. Candy Cavity tablets are found in witches' huts, due to the Lick Witches recruiting more witches. And finally, Forlorn Hollows tablets are found in woodland mansions. These different locations are ripe with lore, and we have discussed them previously. What we are focused on today is the Forlorn Hollows tablet and where it came from. Numerous cave tablets are found in the loot table of their respective caves, and for the Forlorn Hollows it is no different. Many tablets are found in the chests within their dilapidated buildings littering the canyon-like formations of the Forlorn Hollows. But why is this important? Well, a common secondary building material found in these buildings is dark oak wood. This at first doesn't seem like much, but taking into account the favored building material of the Illagers paints a different story. In both structures built by the Illagers in-game, the Pillager Outpost and the Woodland Mansion, dark oak is the primary building block of these structures, normally complemented by cobblestone. Although it could be an aesthetic choice made by the developers of Minecraft to differentiate the villagers, which are mostly fond of oak wood, and the Illagers, the dark version of the villagers and thus fond of dark oak wood, for the sake of this video, we will view it as a lore distinction. Anyways, while the dark oak complements of the Forlorn structures could simply be made by the Underzealots, part of me wonders if the Illagers had a role to play. You see, the Illagers are connoisseurs of the dark arts, as evident by the Evokers and hidden illusioners that use magic to practice their abilities. In the case of the Evoker, they use magic to summon fangs from the ground and vexes from the sky. Otherwise, Evokers run away from battle as they solely rely on their magical abilities to fight. Evokers also drop totems of undying, magical charms that literally saves the users from death. Illusioners use their magic to create illusions of themselves to confuse their opponent. It appears that although they are essentially spirits of the illusioners, the illusions can still fire arrows that very much damage the player. The Illagers reside in their mansions, with a number of intriguing rooms that raises more questions than answers, and I believe some may be connected to the Forlorn Hollows. This first room is a wooden cage with a railing above it, not seen in the image. When I first saw this, I thought it could be a boxing ring, but it could also have been a containment cell for other creatures they were hoping to study. One such could be the Corrodants. The Illagers might have thought that Smoothstone could stop the Corrodants from digging away, and thus allowing them to study their dark magic hosted inside of them. This of course isn't the case, and the Corrodants dug out of the cage anyway. The second room would have a more obvious meaning behind the structure. This is one of the prison cells of the Woodland Mansion where they would keep animals and other test subjects to try and change with the dark magic found from the Forlorn Hollows. One of the primary subjects found within these prisons are the Allays, the winner of 2021's mob vote. These are not only found in the Woodland Mansions as prisoners, but also in cages around pillager outposts. Clearly, the Illagers wanted to study and potentially change them to do their bidding, and that they did. With enough dark magic, the Allays were transformed. They were transformed into the Vexes we see today. We know these were created to cause harm, as the definition of the word Vex is to cause distress to. While there are other rooms in the mansion that are certainly interesting, this last one I believe could be directly related to the Forlorn Hollows. This room has a wool structure of an Illager holding a torch or some light source. The Forlorn Hollows are incredibly dark, and it would make sense to bring a light source like a torch into the cave to see. However, torches also have a secondary use in the Forlorn Hollows, and that is to attract glue moths. If a glue moth is brought to a torch low enough on the ground, the underzealots can pick up the glue moth and conduct a ritual on it. The Illagers likely observed this action and decided to document it in the form of a wool statue in their mansions. The Illagers may have stumbled upon the Forlorn Hollows in their history and took a liking to it because it was similar to what they were looking for: dark, cult magic that could be used against their enemies, the villagers. The only problem? They couldn't understand it, so they had to make repeat expeditions to the cave. They did this by rummaging through the chests of the chapels and churches of the Forlorn Hollows and finding the cave tablets. Why it was there was anyone's guess, but perhaps they took them back to their mansions in hopes of returning to the Forlorn Hollows to gather more information on the dark magic they desired. We mentioned previously that not only are the cave tablets found at their unique locations, but also in the underground cabins of the mod. However, this begs the question, who constructed the cabins and who wrote the cave compendium? In-game, the tooltip of the cave compendium is written by, quote, Dr. Professor Alexander Caverns, PhD. But who is this mysterious professor? Well, to address the elephant in the room, this is clearly a nod to the developer of the mod, Alex. While this is the easy explanation, remember, we are looking for lore. Given there is nearly no lore in the game for it, I guess we will have to write our own story. Alexander Caverns had attended the University of Blockburbia, where he majored in speleology, which is the study of caves and their systems. As a young lad, Mr. Caverns always found himself digging holes he couldn't get out of, but instead of learning from his mistakes, he decided to learn about his mistakes. As he grew older, the holes he dug got deeper, and he learned more about it. When the time came to go to university, Alex had decided to pack his pickaxe, shovel, and various other spelunking materials and head to UB, University of Blockburbia. For 8 years, he rigorously studied until he graduated with a PhD in speleology. Upon leaving university, he began his journey in the world below, where he studied plenty of interesting locations and creatures. He documented the lush caves, dripstone caves, and deep dark. However, these caves were quite a bit more common than the discoveries that would make him famous. He submitted his finding to the University of Blockburbia, where he received the award for Top Cave Diver of the Year. Somehow, Mr. Caverns did not feel satisfied with this award. He felt that while his findings garnered him love and attention, it wasn't as exciting as he would have hoped. His childhood passion had become a job, and he was feeling burnt out, so he took off. He began a separate journey into the overworld, exploring places he had neglected with all his years spent underground. One day, while he was relaxing at the beach, he noticed some rocks sticking from out of the ground. Curious, he carefully brushed off the sand and noticed a curious yellow symbol on it. He took it home that day, but didn't think much of it. That was until he found the others. The next place he visited was ancient ruins from a jungle-faring race long gone. During the tour, he wandered off to explore a bit on his own, trespassing into the ancient jungle temple. He messed with some switches and levers. He heard something open and investigated. He found an opening in the floor above him, which provided him access to a hidden treasure chest within. It was here he saw another tablet with the curious symbol, this one green. He snatched the tablet and quickly got back to the group before anyone noticed him gone. When he arrived back home, he placed the two tablets side by side. They both had identical symbols. The only difference was the color. Over the many more adventures he went on, he gathered more and more tablets of different colors. There had to be a connection, right? What was the connection? It was time for him to study. Under the gaze of a microscope, he noticed that carved into the back of the tablets were more mysterious symbols, a form of ancient language that he had studied at University of Blockburbia. He translated the symbols and words like prehistoric and magnetic and radiation were discovered, but others had more vague terms like hole breaker and gum and forsaken. Alexander Caverns had translated many tablets and decoded them onto a paper, where he later conjured up a map to mysterious locations he hadn't heard of before. Like, what the hell was a candy cavity? Packing supplies for a journey, Mr. Caverns set out to where the map was taking him. When he arrived at the location, it took him to a rural field in the middle of nowhere. Disappointed with traveling at an incredible distance, he was ready to give up. It was not until he walked past a cave entrance that he noticed what was there. Pink soil, rainbows emerging from the ground, and a sweet aroma radiated from the cave. He had struck gold. Immediately, he marked the location and gathered materials to return and investigate further. From a distance, he would observe the behaviors of creatures, documenting his findings. When he built up the courage to go further into the cave, he was able to document more unique behaviors and interactions he has had with the denizens. He repeated this behavior for every other cave and critter, and all his findings were published in the Cave Compendium. However, not all was well received. A chapter in Alex's book labeled Tremorzilla was laughed at by the masses. I mean, a monster so tall it could level buildings and fire a radioactive beam that could devastate any and all areas? Ridiculous! Add on the fact that Mr. Caverns wrote that it could be tamed and ridden by a person? Absolutely insane. The chapter was so outrageous that it nearly discredited all of Alexander Caverns' research. He was a laughingstock. Alex hated the idea that years of his research was discredited because of the highly skeptical claim he made about Tremorzilla, so he set out to prove himself right. Given all his research on the Luxtractosaurus, the toxic caves, and the Hullbreaker, it made sense on paper, but it just needed to be done in practice. However, once Mr. Caverns went on to prove himself right, that was the last anyone ever saw of him. We don't know what happened to Dr. Professor Alexander Caverns, PhD, but given that the path to Tremorzilla as written in the Cave Compendium is immensely dangerous, it wouldn't be a stretch to assume nature ran its course. Perhaps he was incinerated by the Luxtractosaurus, maybe he was eaten by the Hullbreaker, or maybe he was melted by radiation and fused into the brainiac in the toxic caves. Or maybe he didn't find what he was looking for and hid his face in shame. Truth is, we don't know. We only know that his research survives, and only time will tell if Tremorzilla exists. But what if it's true? What if he really does exist? In the game, Tremorzilla is created rather than found. You first need to kill the Luxtractosaurus and gather its tectonic shards. Then you need to slay the Hullbreaker to receive the immortal embryo. You then craft the shards with the embryo along with the Tremosaurus egg to receive the Tremorzilla egg. You are supposed to place the egg and spawn it through nuclear hellfire, exploding it with a nuclear bomb. Then feed it a ton of nuclear waste barrels to tame it. While this is the way we spawn it in survival, this isn't a tutorial. We are more focused on the potential story of Tremorzilla. It is important to consider that all of our information for the story is coming from a lore drawing of the creature, more specifically, the portion of the drawing labeled Betrayal. Because Tremorzilla likely never existed and is only brought forth directly through player interaction, it is reasonable to believe that Tremorzilla is more of a legend than a creature. The legend of Tremorzilla begins with a kingdom, as seen in the lore drawing. But where is this kingdom? If we turn our attention to the top right of the drawing, we see a panel named Basic Fire Breath. What's interesting is that around the feet of the creature are some fires, but the color underneath the fires is nearly identical to that of the netherrack. Perhaps the legend of Tremorzilla originates from the nether? This is actually supported with the drawing directly below that showcases some form of castle. While not an exact match, where else do we see a castle in Minecraft? That's right, the Nether Fortress. What if Tremorzilla was the defense mechanism to the residents of the Nether Fortresses, or rather, a variant of him? There are a couple skins for Tremorzilla, a purple retro skin, the standard green skin, and a red and orange tectonic skin. We want to focus on the tectonic skin for this particular story because it is the closest to having a fire breath attack, even if it is just a recolored beam. So what happened to this Tremorzilla that defended the Nether Fortresses? Well, we can see with some of the Nether Fortresses in Minecraft that some bridges extended from the fortress structure themselves are cut off, almost appearing broken. What if Tremorzilla unknowingly destroyed parts of the Nether Fortress, causing several casualties by those Tremorzilla was supposed to defend? Tremorzilla, of course, wouldn't think much of it because it is so big and hardly would notice causing such destruction. This might have occurred so frequently that people living in the Nether Fortresses would be forced to take action. This action, of course, would be to run Tremorzilla out of the fortresses, as it was causing more harm than good. That begs the question, how do you move a huge creature? Make it scared of you, of course. We know that Tremorzilla is healed via radiation, and a way that the builders of the Nether Fortress would heal it would likely be through ray guns that would be shot at the creature to heal any wounds. One day, Tremorzilla would become injured while defending the fortress, and expect to be healed by the builders of the fortress. The builders would refuse, but instead of simply not healing it, they would begin being the ones injuring Tremorzilla further. Confused and upset, the Tremorzilla would run off, taking one last look at the Nether Fortress that it had exhausted so much time and energy defending, seemingly unaware of the destruction it indirectly caused to the structure of the fortress. Notice how this is a betrayal. Tremorzilla is a docile creature and only attacks if provoked first. The Tremorzilla in the Nether Fortress legend thought it was a guardian and cared for the people it was protecting, so when they pushed it away from their fortress, the Tremorzilla could not bring itself to attack the people in the fortress. This makes this particular Tremorzilla story not one of revenge, but one of betrayal. Though, how did the people in the fortress get their hands on a Tremorzilla? Well, if we assume that the Nether is in fact under the overworld, which we talked briefly about in our video about the primordial caves, it would make sense that the Nether is the closest land to the core of Minecraft's world. Given the fiery abyss that is the Nether, it adds up. The core of the Earth in real life is considered radioactive. According to some sources of CamLAN scientists, CamLAN standing for Kamioka Liquid Scintillator Anti-Neutrino Detector, one thing that's at least 97% certain is that radioactive decay supplies only about half of the Earth's heat. If this should be believed and we assume the Minecraft Earth has a similar composition of its core, it could go within reason to guess that if Tremorzilla does feed off radiation and is a radioactive monster, it could have been naturally found in the lava lakes of the Nether because it is the closest to the core, at least in the legend. The people of legend likely came across a slumbering Tremorzilla and fostered it as a member of their family and raised it to protect their fortresses. Of course, this legend is purely what we wrote for Tremorzilla's story, and the lore of Tremorzilla is up in the air. After all, why wouldn't it? Tremorzilla can only be summoned through player interaction, and the one thing we can go off of is the lore drawing and concept art of the creature. It could even be possible that Tremorzilla in fact has no story to it, and exists solely in a vacuum. We just don't know. What we do know, however, is that to craft the Tremorzilla egg we need very rare and interesting choice of items. You need tectonic shards, an immortal embryo, and a Tremorsaurus egg. We can speculate the items and what parts they play in the creation of Tremorzilla. Firstly, we need quite a few tectonic shards obtained from slaying the Luxtroctosaurus. We speculated in the first video of our series that they are infused with the soul energy of fallen species that died during the first extinction event of the primordial caves. The use of tectonic shards within the crafting recipe of the Tremorzilla egg is likely to infuse the Tremorsaurus egg with the abilities of what is held within the tectonic shards. They would enhance the Tremorzilla's bite force and strength, while the Grottoceratopses held within the shards upgraded the defensive capabilities of the Tremorzilla. While the Subpteranodon's use is unclear, we do know that the back spikes of the Tremorzilla are likely the tectonic shards running down its back. The immortal embryo is a drop from the Hullbreaker and is what we inject into the Tremorsaurus egg to allow the embryo to accept these additional abilities. Hold on, Hullbreaker? Indeed, the fetus of the Tremorzilla is held within the Hullbreaker, but how? It could be possible that the Hullbreaker would be distantly related to the Tremorzilla, given the immense size and jaws the Hullbreaker has, both showcased in Tremorzilla's design. We do know that the actual kaiju of Godzilla is an excellent swimmer and lives in the deepest trenches of the ocean, and Tremorzilla is a nod towards Godzilla, so it would be within reason to assume that the drop from the Hullbreaker was intentional. This video exists as a way to close off some loose ends we left with our last few videos. Even then we might have missed quite a lot. There really is a lot to cover with the mod, and I believe we did a decent job doing just that. As we stated in the previous video on the Candy Cavity, we really did have a blast creating these videos and writing the story for each one. It might not be the story everyone agrees with, but that wasn't the intention of the series. We intended for the series to be a story on a mod that we wanted to tell, some based in facts and others almost completely creative. As always, we encourage you all to write your own story and believe what you want to believe. After all, isn't that what Minecraft is about? I suppose you all are wondering what the future for this channel holds, and I can say it holds a lot. With the book closing on Alex's Caves, the book on the world of Minecraft mods opens. Before we reveal our next mod we will cover, we have plans to produce a spin-off series that runs parallel to the series of mods we'll be covering. But that is all I can say about that. That series will be revealed when the time comes. But for now, what will be the next mod we cover? That's right, you all saw it coming as we have talked about it before. This series focuses on the lore of the bosses and their origins, narrated by not only myself, but someone else you have seen before on the channel. He is quite the connoisseur of this mod. However, only time will tell. For now, we thank you all for sticking with us during our wacky storytellings of the mod, and hope to see you in the future. Wait, before you go, if you want the complete lore of the mod, be sure to check out all of our other videos on the mod. The playlist is in the description. Remember to join our Discord, and if you would like to support the channel, consider subscribing or becoming a channel member.